Hello and welcome back to a new episode of How Do I Beat This. Today we're going to be having a look at at drops, how to beat drops, and just generally some advice against terran I think would be helpful. I watched this replay already a bit and I've managed to catch a couple of mistakes here. Now this was a replay from Jay who sent it to me. What did he say? Well, something about drops being very difficult to deal with. That's what he said. So I'm like, well, I can have a look at that. Terran multi-prong harass, what he said. Really struggling Terran multi-prong harass, or if I get attacked head-on while simultaneously get dropped in all my bases. I try warping in 5 to 6 stalkers, but the units in the drop just absolutely roll over them before they've warped in or soon after, looking forward to being picked apart. Well, this is the problem that people have when talking about drops, is that they act like drops are something that you react to. Drops are not something that you react to, they're something you anticipate. In the way that the moment you start reacting, the drop has already entered your main base. Usually it's too late and the drop is going to be able to do damage. Like, you need to be in place, basically. You should just see it as an attack, where if you're out of position, if an attack is hitting you, you're gonna take damage. The same as with a drop. Even though it's a form of harassment, of course. Like, it's, if the Terran doesn't have Marines in their mineral line and your Oracle shows up, he takes damage. If you don't have Stalkers ready for a drop, or you don't have units ready in position for a drop, you're gonna lose units. It's as simple as that. So what you need to do, you need to anticipate the drop, you need to be ready for it. Now, what is the easiest way to see drops coming is to actually get map vision. So map vision is something that's really important. I keep hammering this, how important map vision is in general. See general army movement, be able to understand where you can move your own army, and that kind of stuff. But also for drops, spotting drops, it's important. Seeing harassment coming, whether it's just a prism, whether it's 5 medevacs, whether it's a single liberator, it doesn't matter. You need to see stuff coming, otherwise you're gambling on unit position. Now sometimes you need to gamble a little on unit position because you don't have full coverage of the map, but in most of the cases you're going to be able to get very good coverage of the map with very little investment as well, and that's really the key to dealing with drops. Now, to start with, some minor points. If you're gonna be walling part of your base, I'd always say put your gateway as close to the top part as possible. So the Reaper is gonna come from this angle usually, and the area you need to defend is either this area or this area. And in that case, a gateway over here would probably be the best thing. So you could put a pylon here, cybercore here, gateway here. You still keep this walled area. You still have space for a tech structure back here, but also your stalker will be able to defend these probes or these probes from the Reaper with relative ease. So try to always do that. I see a lot of people just building their gateway on the bottom side because it starts their wall easier, but that's not how you want to do it. Spend a little time thinking about your walls, and just a building placement in the early game in general. It can save you a probe or two almost every single game, especially in the lower level games where Reapers seem to be more of an issue. So right now already 2 probes lost. This shouldn't really happen, of course. Also keep a close eye on the builder, of course. Now, I'm not a big fan of Stalker Sentry. The reason I'm not a big fan of Stalker Sentry is really quite simple. It's because a lot of the time, Terran will have that Reaper, and in order to deal with it properly, you're gonna need a proper gateway unit, right? Like, sentries don't actually do damage. This is a mistake that many people make. Well, they do a little bit of damage, but it's almost negligible. Like, you don't even really have to think about it as a DPSing unit, right? It's useful for Guardian Shield and Force Field. That's it. Some hallucination every now and then. But you don't want to use this to defend a Reaper. Like, it takes absolute eons to kill a Reaper. So usually I always recommend getting 2 actual units that are able to shoot. So either an Adapter or a Stalker. And then you can get your Sentry after. Now, gases are... Actually, the timing of the gases is fine, but because Jay hasn't really been producing probes, it looks a little early. Like, always continue to produce probes. I guess he lost a bunch, so those 5 workers to the Reaper. So if you have trouble with Reapers, like everyone has in the world, like I do in the world, what I do is just chrono boost my first 2 gate units out. So I send my first unit, like I kind of chase the Reaper around downstairs, and then my second unit can stay upstairs. It's like up the ramp, so I call upstairs. and deal with the Reaper when it comes into the main base. Something like that. Then you don't lose 5 workers, helps a lot in your economic situation. Now, I'm not a big fan of how this build is being done. If you're gonna play 3-gate Robo, you should be playing my Colossus guide Robo, honestly. Either 2-gate or 3-gate is fine, but don't go into Forest Twilight afterwards from this. Like, not on 2 base. And then Robo Bay, it's not very good. You can play Blink initially into Robo Bay, but then you have some kind of presence on the map with Blink Stalkers, and you still get a way faster 3rd base than you do right now. So, not a big fan of this build, or they try to copy something that makes some sense, alright? Don't just... unless you really enjoy making stuff up yourself, I'd always suggest to copy something that someone made that is a lot better than you. It just makes sense. Like, especially lower level guys don't really have the knowledge to understand how a good build order works. Now, you see this move out, right? Reaction should be, first of all, you want to keep this observer in a position where you can spot these 2 ramps. So put it over here in observer mode or something like that. There you can anticipate where the army will come from. Chronobolt Stealth the Immortal. Get 1 or 2 extra batteries. Maybe an extra sentry and more units. Against this kind of 3 Rex play, people tend to panic and not build units. The thing you need is units. It's the only thing that really matters, just units. Anything you can build. Mate, if you have a Stargate, for all I care, you build another Oracle. Or you build extra, actually, not Phoenixes, but another Oracle. Just keep warping and stuff. All of your production structure should be going full blast against this kind of play, you know? Yeah. Your batteries are a little late here already. Now imagine you have that observer over here. What you could do is just move your sentry and stalker here. So if he comes up this ramp, you can't force field because you're over here. But if he decides to come up this ramp, all of a sudden you have yourself a 2 force field ramp with a sentry that has 173 energy. So that means he has 3 force fields. If you warp in 1 extra sentry, you can block this ramp for a full 30 seconds. Or these days it isn't 30 anymore, but not quite sure how long. I think it's like 9 seconds a force field lasts. Imagine that. You get like 20 seconds is what you win. Which would be fantastic. Immortal would be out. You would have another warp in ready. This would be completely useless. You can even cut him in half if you're feeling very confident. But a lot of the time, if you're not confident in your force field stuff, you can just preemptively force field. Like, it's better to keep him out than try to cut him off and lose everything, right? So you know he's coming already. So all you need to do, force field. And even if he comes up this ramp, you can still just put force field here, force field here, force field here. And you're completely fine. Now instead what happens is you lose your sentry, you're not fighting, you're losing DPS, you lose your pylon, and even though you actually have a pretty decent army and you had a good setup, a defensive setup, like, you lost too much for, you know, for what was necessary. Like, your defensive setup was so good that if you just force fielded here, you would have been completely fine. But now you didn't force field and you lost a sentry, lost a couple of stalkers. You're still in a very good spot though. You have extremely good vision. I'd always recommend not putting 2 observers at your opponent's base. So 1 observer, usually what you do is you scout your opponent's stack, or like you go to the front to check his army, then you can scout his stack, and then you can just put it in observer mode over here to check out any kind of move out from your opponent. Your second observer could be in this location. If you get a third observer, could be in this location. Now, in that case, you already have this part of the map covered in vision. You can build a pylon over here. You can put an adept over here. You can put an adept here, or you can put an observer in observer mode in this area as well, depending on how many observers you want to get. Like, these are all things that will help you massively with just controlling parts of the map with vision, which is the most important thing in StarCraft. If you don't count mechanics, and actually just mechanics probably. This observer is doing nothing. Why is it here? It should be covering map. It should be covering the map. You need to know where he's coming from. You need to know what's happening. Instead, you're making sure you have detection. You've already scouted. Nothing is coming to you that requires detection. There's a reactor on the starport, which means it's either Viking, Liberator, or Medevac. It can be Banshee. The mines from here, so even if there would be mines, which there isn't by the way, if there would be mines, that wouldn't really be an issue for you. Like the only issue would be if you would be dropping in a base. Otherwise, they show themselves after they shoot once and then you can clear them up. So it's more important, even against mine drops, to have vision on the map. Now, you have 2 observers being completely useless. This one is being completely useless as it's just keeping an eye on the production, which won't chase you. Already got your information. You know it's starport, you know it's 3 racks. So it's not mech, it's bio, and you know there's no 3rd CC yet. So the only thing you are caring about is move-outs currently, and perhaps later on whether he's getting a 3rd base or not. You have no clue whether he's getting a 3rd base or not. Now, if you see your opponent not getting a 3rd base at this time, and you have such a good setup, I would not recommend going straight into 6 gases. You might want to be thinking a bit more defensively in that case. Maybe get a battery over here. Maybe a cannon over here. Maybe a cannon over here. Like, this is 150 mineral. That's a cannon somewhere, you know? And your opponent isn't even expanding. He's on 3 gases. Like, this guy is... You know, he's gonna feel the pressure of time on him very soon. It's important that he... You know, he does something. And this is really what I always talk about, is that you need that vision as well. So I'm not a fan of this forward base. I much prefer taking bases in a line on Simulacrum. Just because you can get abused a bit by them dropping in the main and you walking into your main and then them dropping into your natural. So I'd always suggest taking those in a line, but if you don't, you're gonna need vision, right? You're gonna need vision here, like of this ramp. You're gonna need vision of this area and of this area. Now this can easily be covered with 2 pylons. You build 1 pylon here, you build 1 pylon here, and bam, just like that, you have vision there. If you're struggling with drops, just get a cannon in every single base. Just build a cannon here, build a cannon here. That's the kind of stuff that helps. It gives some real power to any kind of defense. Now, you lost your observer on his side, which is, you know, that's the way it is. That's gonna happen. People are gonna scan for that, but you should have vision here. You should have vision here with an observer. You could have an adept forward. You could have a zealot over here. Like, it's way more valuable for you. Like, if you lose a zealot that is 100 minerals over here, that is still better than him surprising you with his army at some point. If you lose a pylon over here to 2 dropships, people are like, well, if I build a pylon here, they'll just drop. Yeah, but the alternative is him dropping into your main. Guess what's more valuable to him? Him getting into your main unseen, or him killing a pylon worth 100 minerals? It's like, well, but he can just clear all the pylons. Yeah, well, he could. He could just clear all the pylons. Of course he could. In your main base, you could clear all your probes. Like, that's the point, isn't it? It's the point to spot him, and it's gonna cost a little bit. That's fine. Like, majority of the people who make these arguments, they usually have loads of money to spend. So just keep in mind that the main thing really is vision here, and full vision. Try to get as much vision as possible. Look at maps. Be like, hey, what are key areas? Now, this might be a key area. This might be a key area. And then you always want to have the sides covered. See, and just like that, all the pings on the map from a nice little circle. Well, messed up square. Half of a square around your bases. And all of those places should have vision, basically. That's your goal in life, in StarCraft life. So now what happens is, oh, he didn't get the pylon that was built over here for spotting. Instead, he gets the Robo Bay, a forge, another pylon. Hell, if he was trying to do it, then yeah. If he wanted to, he could probably kill all your workers. And then you warp in some stalkers. If someone gets into your base unseen, what you should be doing is, there's a couple of things. So, obviously, initial scenario is we see everything, we move stalkers in position on the edge. 5 to 6 stalkers for 2 medevacs. Maybe add a couple of zealots, 4 or 5 zealots if there's a 3rd medevac. If there's 4 medevacs, go up to like 12 stalkers, 3, 4 zealots, something like that. Alright? Now imagine we mess up. We all mess up. We make mistakes. Drop enters our base. What happens? Don't warp in stalkers, or don't warp in anything in the action. Warp outside of the action. You want to gather a force before you attack into him. What happens here is you warp in straight into his vision, because like, oh, I want to be close to the action. If he pays attention here, both of your stalkers die before they even finish warping in. Okay? You want to accumulate a little bit of a force before you can fight. Now, second thing is check if you have time warp. Maybe that's even your first thing you want to check out. Check, hey, is warp-in available? Yes. Will my warp-ins be sufficient to deal with this army? If the answer is yes, they'll be fine. Second question is, do I have recall available? If the first one is a no, and if the answer is yes, then carefully look, how much do I need to recall? Do I need to recall my entire army? Most of the time the answer to that is no. How much do I need to recall in order to fight this? Well, then you think of that, then you recall. If you don't have recall available, you need to split your army. Look at your army, basically the same as with recalls, like how much do I need to send to the main? Then you send that to the main. And then in that case, you try to still warp in, try to buy some time with the units that you warp in. Like maybe move back and forth a bit. I'd never do it with expensive units like Colossi, but in theory it's possible. I mean, it's better than losing 30 probes or 15 probes or something like that, right? That's economy you're losing, it's tech you're losing. Now, so this is the problem. Like he's just sending too little and he's sending it one by one. It's very common to see against drop. You need to make good decisions in this moment, and you can think ahead of this, like, hey, if I'm doing this build, I'm gonna have this at the time he can start dropping. If he gets into my main base, how would I start splitting? And you think to yourself, how would I split? What do I need at the front? I have batteries there, and then you split accordingly. So this is kind of your flow chart. First off, can warp-ins deal with it? Second, do I have recall available? What do I recall? And as a last-ditch effort, you can just send units there manually walking, which is obviously the slowest way, while trying to buy time with warp-ins. Now, that really is your plan to deal with drops. So initially is preventing them by having good map vision and units in position. If that doesn't work, you go into the flow chart and you see how to exactly deal with drops in that case. Now, of course, stuff like static defense can help. If you're really struggling with drops, add a cannon here and there, but that is a little bit of cheating as well, in the way that you're making it easier for yourself to play in the short run, but the further you get in leagues, the better you get, you will realize that you're gonna need map vision, as map vision really is one of the most important things. And like I said, money almost never is the problem, as we see 2.5k in the bank, you know? The excuse of, I can't just start sending zealots around to spot for things. Well, trust me, my friend, most of the time you can. Just have a look at your own games. Tell me that you can't, then I think you will be caught lying. So I hope this was helpful for dealing with terran drops. Spent a lot of time on that. If there's still any questions, then I know a lot of people struggle with this. Feel free to ask them in the comments. I will be answering them for the next day or 2 or 3. Thanks everyone for watching. I really hope you did like this video and it was helpful. If it was, feel free to like, subscribe to my channel. I also have a second channel, which is down in the description below, together with my Patreon. So if you want to support me, subscribing to either my Patreon or to my second channel helps me a lot. Thank you very much for watching. See you all next time for a new episode of, I'm not sure what it's going to be tomorrow. We'll see. Bye bye.